The Marvel Cinematic Universe is filled with cool technical gadgets, mystical weapons, and some of the most iconic items around. But while our heroes typically stick to their own skill sets, they've had to rely on various weapons that weren't very familiar from time to time. Let's take a look at some of the most notable moments when our heroes got their hands on someone else's favorite toy in the heat of battle. Mjolnir. The MCU has tons of fancy gadgets made out of super strong materials like vibranium. But there's just something about Thor's hammer that has always captivated our imaginations. Maybe it's the vague worthy requirement of wielding it. Admit it, you've always wanted to try picking it up. Or maybe it's the fact that using it means harnessing the power of a god. Whatever the reason, we completely understand why everyone wants to use it, but since we can't do it ourselves, most of us have been super eager to see Captain America do it on the big screen. After all, he's thrown it around without a problem in the comic books. Yet in Avengers Age of Ultron, he seemed to struggle with it just like the rest of our heroes. But according to Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige, Cap was really just being polite. He's always had the power to use Thor's magical hammer, but he just didn't want to make a scene about it at the time. But in Avengers Endgame, all bets were off, and we finally got to see Cap using Mjolnir against the Mad Titan Thanos. He's really come a long way since he was shocked to find himself fighting a god back in the Avengers. We also saw him holding Stormbreaker, but Thor wasn't quite ready to share that toy just yet. Rescue. Bad guys love nothing better than kidnapping the wives or girlfriends of superheroes in order to get their attention. Maybe they could have tried a strong-worded letter instead. Protecting your partner is part of a superhero job requirement. But Pepper Potts has stepped up to save herself and Tony Stark from time to time. In Iron Man 3, we even saw her briefly wearing Tony's armor. Sure, she wasn't exactly graceful with it, but we have a feeling those suits have quite the learning curve. Now that she has her very own rescue suit, which we saw in Endgame, we expect her super skills will only improve. Although Tony's ultimate fate might have been a surprise, he knew he wouldn't always be around to protect Pepper, no matter how he might want to. So as the ultimate parting gift, he gave her away to protect herself. Hulkbuster. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner have always bonded over their brilliant minds and their love of creating new and interesting gadgets. Sure, sometimes this has gone terribly wrong for everyone involved, but for the most part, it's been a good thing. Bruce Banner has always been very realistic about his connection to the Incredible Hulk and the fact that he's dangerous. Although some of his comrades have occasionally tried to downplay it, Bruce has always been keenly and painfully aware of the fact that he can become a serious threat in mere moments. Enter the Mark XLIV suit, better known as the Hulkbuster armor. This massive mechanical suit made its debut in Avengers Age of Ultron and was specifically designed to combat the Incredible Hulk. And Tony Stark got to test it out against the Hulk in that very movie. It's powerful enough to knock the Hulk's teeth out, and that's saying something. In Avengers Infinity War, the Hulk was reluctant to help out our heroes, and considering that the last time he hung out with them he lost a tooth, we don't blame him. So Bruce Banner ended up putting on a set of Hulkbuster armor himself, the armor designed to be used against him in order to fight Thanos. We wonder if that was a point of contention between Bruce and the Hulk when they fused together in Endgame. Spear. Oh, the children of Thanos, we hardly knew ye, or at least the MCU versions of them. Everyone knows about Thanos' favorite child, Gamora, who he threw off a cliff in Avengers Infinity War. And then there's his least favorite child, Nebula, who got through her childhood with a few robot parts. All things considered, the Black Order seemed to do relatively well until our heroes defeated them in Infinity War. The Black Order had a pretty bad time in this movie, but none more than Proxima Midnight. She had to watch her husband, Corvus Glaive, get taken out by Vision. And to add insult to grievous injury, he did so using Corvus's own weapon. We bet you can go ahead and guess what kind of weapon it was. Sure, we know them being married wasn't mentioned in the movie, but neither was anything else about these characters. Proxima Midnight didn't do much better with her spear, since it got intercepted by Captain America, who tossed it back to Black Widow, who promptly used it to wound Corvus Glaive. Maybe the Black Order could have fared better if they managed to keep their hands on their own weapons. Shield. Everyone knows that Captain America's shield is one of the most iconic weapons in all of comic book history. It's such an important symbol that handing it over to Sam Wilson in Avengers Endgame meant that Sam became the new Captain America. But he's far from the only person to have his hands on the vibranium shield crafted by Howard Stark oh so long ago. Even Peter Parker managed to get his hands on it during the infamous airport fight of Captain America Civil War. Not that he needs to brag about it or anything, but he pulled it right out of Cap's hands. However, we really didn't get to see Peter use the shield before Ant-Man returned it to his hero, Captain America. But later on in the movie, Steve's pal Bucky got some solid use out of it. Tony was determined to take Bucky out after learning the truth about what happened to his parents so long ago. Bucky fought for his life, and Steve fought for his best friend. At one point during the battle, Bucky used Steve's shield to bash Tony. No wonder Tony didn't want to see Steve leave with the shield once the battle was over. Ouch. Webshooters. We all know there are many different versions of Spider-Man, each with his own powers and gadgets. There's even a Spider-Man with 6 arms. Although we have a feeling we're not going to see that guy in the MCU anytime soon. There are versions of Spidey that come standard with built-in web shooters, but in the MCU, he relies on a couple of handy wrist devices to get the job done. It's a good thing Peter Parker also happens to be a genius in addition to being bit by a radioactive spider. His friend Ned Leeds doesn't have any superpowers, but darn does the kid have a lot of enthusiasm for superheroes. He begs Peter to be his guy in a chair, who helps him guide through his missions, and when push comes to shove, Ned uses Peter's web shooters to save his friend from the Shocker. Now we're glad Ned got to have this awesome moment, and we're obviously relieved Peter Parker survived, but wouldn't such a weapon require an enormous amount of strength to use properly? Maybe Marvel Studios didn't think showing a high schooler getting his wrist snapped off would go over well with the audience. War Machine. We know that War Machine is a full-fledged member of the Avengers, and he even stayed to help out during the decimation. But for a lot of the time during his career in the MCU, he's been little more than Tony Stark's sidekick and someone he can trade quips with. That's a valuable role, but it's not very heroic. There have been some times when Rhodey has challenged Tony, and even a time when he wore one of his prototype suits in Iron Man 2 before getting his own. Tony Stark knows how to throw a party, but he also knows how to make one really awkward, like getting inebriated and using your super suit to smash things. It made Rhodey so angry he got into a super suit and proceeded to smash Tony. Going to a party and putting on one of his host suits is generally considered to be poor etiquette, and could lead to very awkward situations, so don't try this in real life, folks. Even in the MCU, this just made the situation all the more awkward as Tony and Rhodey smashed up the party and each other. Black Panther suit. If you're the ruler of Wakanda, it comes with some super sweet perks. You get to commune with your ancestors, eat a special superpower-granting herb, and you even get a sweet suit of armor and tons of tech gadgets. If you don't mind fighting crime and having tons of responsibilities, it's probably pretty great. Not only does T'Challa have the warriors of Wakanda at his disposal, he also has help from his sister, Shuri. She's the brightest mind in the MCU, and she has access to pretty much unlimited resources, so you can just imagine the kind of stuff she comes up with. One of them is the Black Panther suits that give T'Challa his signature Black Panther style. But when T'Challa is overthrown by Eric Killmonger, the new ruler has access to Shuri's entire arsenal of goodies, including the Black Panther suit. Although Killmonger quickly establishes he isn't much for tradition, he just can't resist trying on one of these awesome superhero outfits, and we can't blame him. After all, he kinda won the fight against T'Challa fair and square, so there really should be some kind of out-of-bounds rule. Plus, he just looks good in gold. The Gauntlet. In Avengers Infinity War, we saw Thanos use his Infinity Gauntlet in order to snap out half of all life in the universe. Neither the Gauntlet nor Thanos escaped from the decimation unscathed, and things only got worse. In Avengers Endgame, we learned Thanos had used the Infinity Gauntlet once more to destroy the Infinity Stones so the decimation could never be undone. The job fried the Gauntlet, and Thanos wasn't looking much better. But when our heroes decided to travel through time and collect the Infinity Stones, they knew they'd have to construct something new to hold them in. The Hulk was the most obvious choice for who would wield the new Infinity Gauntlet and use it to undo the decimation. Out of all the remaining heroes, he and Thor were the strongest, and let's just say the God of Thunder had seen better days. But although Professor Hulk succeeded in undoing the decimation, he needed some help to defeat Thanos in an invading Chitauri army. So Tony Stark was forced to use his new Infinity Gauntlet to save the day, but at the cost of his own life. Even a superhuman giant like Professor Hulk got injured using it, so it's no surprise that a basic human body like Tony's just couldn't handle it. Black Widow. She may not have her own super suit, but Black Widow has her fair share of useful gadgets at her disposal, and quite frankly, even when she just uses her fist, she's still a powerful force to be reckoned with. Natasha Romanoff has a long history of espionage, so she fully appreciates the value of being subtle and less than flashy. Sometimes the best way to use someone else's weapon is to get it into the most capable hands possible. Sure, we've seen other characters use Captain America's shield, but none with the same level of expertise as Steve Rogers himself. And considering the fact that this thing regularly defies the laws of physics, it's not very surprising. In Avengers Age of Ultron, Natasha did Steve a solid by grabbing his shield after it got left behind. It usually comes back to Cap like a giant metal boomerang, but when that doesn't happen, it puts him in a pretty precarious situation. Luckily, he had his pal Natasha to help him out. And although she may not be well versed in the art of the shield, Natasha also used it to block some incoming blows herself. We have a feeling that, although she's well versed in many forms of weaponry, shields probably aren't one of them. After all, they're kind of outdated. No offense, Cap. We know all our favorite Marvel heroes have their own weapons of choice, but are there any who you'd like to see switch weapons? If so, make sure to tell us about it in the comment section and then click on the subscribe button for more great videos from us here at CBR. Bye for now.